So the basic argument that you're making is that the transparency as SEBI chief that she has come to mandate for other companies is a transparency that she did not show when it came to herself. Now, her rebuttal said that if disclosures were made internally. What you are talking about is, let's say, the stage at which the Supreme Court was looking at SEBI and its investigation of the Adani group. At that stage, should she have either you're saying she should have either recused herself from that process, saying there's a potential conflict of interest here, or there could appear to be a conflict of interest, even if there isn't one, point one, or she should have placed before the court, hello, Supreme Court, you should know that in 2015 or in 2017, this is what my investments look like. Am I summarizing you correctly?
Absolutely. And I'm saying that, so yes, if it's an internal matter, we don't know what SEBI disclosure rules are and what she has recused herself on, nothing is known. But when the issue goes into the public domain, goes into the Supreme Court, she is the one leading the explanations and presentations that were made to the expert committee set up by the Supreme Court. That expert committee was looking into whether SEBI has done a proper job. Do you mean to say all of them kept quiet about the fact that she had an investment and she had, informed, and they said, that's all right, it's all history, we don't want to know about it? In which case, the questions have to be even larger. You have to ask a larger pool of people, why was it okay? And the fact that it's all built out like this in the public domain is bad optics. So if it had already been done, there would be no questions. But that's one part, right? Now, all these little things that are coming out, which is that you don't seem to even bother about compliance rules and processes, that is adding to the situation, right? It just shows that the rules are for you guys and they don't apply to us because I'm the regulator. In fact, it has to be the other way around. You have to be like Caesar's wife. You have to comply with everything. You have to set a higher standard. You can't be like the traffic police, that I will ride without a helmet, I will be on the wrong side, but I will fine you. That's how it sounds to me.
Yeah. So here's what her defenders are arguing. Her defenders are arguing that by this yardstick, no SEBI chief could have ever made a investment in their previous life or in their previous avatars, because sooner or later some or the other company is going to come under the watchdog scrutiny. Does that mean that no investments can be made? At which stage do you owe it to the public to make your investments as private citizens, placed in the public domain? The court would have been a public domain, right? She's arguing that all mandated disclosures were made internally.
So these are arguments for people who don't understand the system, who don't know what SEBI imposes as rules for others. Now, let me give you an example. If somebody works in the financial sector with a finance company or a mutual fund, he has an investment in a portfolio management company. He has no idea what the portfolio management company is buying or selling for him. Do you know it's not allowed? The portfolio management company has to tell this guy that, listen, I'm going to buy X stock for you or Y stock for you. He has to check with his office. He has to see whether there's conflict of interest. He has to okay it, and only then can the PMS buy. This is a serious loss of time. By the time he does it, he doesn't always get the best price. Now, this is a rule that SEBI has applied to hundreds and thousands of people working in the financial sector. Are you saying it will not apply to the SEBI chairperson? And again, you can twist everything. So whoever these people are who are defending, they're obviously completely twisting it because, it applies to judges as well, right? So every few days you hear about a judge who says, no, I'm recusing myself because I either know someone or whatever. Does it mean, okay, the judge will always have relatives, he'll always have neighbors and friends? Does it mean he will not judge anything? Do you ever say that? They just recuse themselves from that particular case. Similarly, SEBI is not one person, one organization who's looking at 5,000 companies. All she does is she says that I will recuse myself from here. And although SEBI is just a 30-year-old organization, even that little 30-year-old organization has a precedent for this. This is not rocket science. When CB Bhave was appointed, NSDL, the organization that he headed, was under investigation by SEBI. So when they made him SEBI chairman, they ring-fenced him from the NSDL investigation. They said he will not look at it. And there was an internal committee that would look at anything to do with NSDL. Now, if you have that precedent in SEBI, is it so difficult for it to apply to you? So all she had to do in Adani is to say, committee of whole-time members would look at it. I'm not looking at it because I had an investment. And otherwise,
And therefore, it's to be clear, the problem is not that Madhavi Puri Buch had an investment as a private citizen in this offshore fund. The problem is that when it was her role to investigate the allegation of stock manipulation or other allegations against the Adani group, she could not have been part of that process. She should have either recused herself or declared her possible conflict. Correct?
that's one point. Absolutely. The second is, now suppose she had that investment and she had said, I have redeemed those shares in 2018 as soon as I became whole time member. I don't think it affects me. The investigation went on brilliantly. Show cause notices were sent to both sides and the matter was settled. Nobody would even be talking about it. Instead, what you have is in April, you had a leak that those who were investigated for the stock price shooting up, and it's been shooting up for a long time since 2013, they will get away with a settlement and some nominal penalties. A leak, mind you. There's no order as yet. And there is a notice. Why did Hindenburg go out of its way to find this? I mean, there is a whistleblower, they say. You can make out from the documents a whistleblower can come only from two places, either the organization where she had an investment or the organization she regulates, right?
Yeah, yeah.
These, in fact, some of them seem to be personal papers. So we don't even know whether it is coming out of her home or her close circle. But there are
Yeah.
documents. The documents have not been refuted by her. She's not said a single one of those is fudge. I mean, we live in days of AI. So my first reaction was, will they come out when I heard there was a statement saying these are all fudged and cooked up? No, she has confirmed all of them, right?
Yeah.
So then the questions are legitimate, right?
What now? The opposition wants her to resign. I don't think she's resigning. The government is clearly not in any mood for a JPC. So, and the case is probably all set to return to the Supreme Court. We don't know what direction that might take. So, what now?
So I don't know. I feel most governments remain very confident. Okay. Every time there's been a JPC, we've had months when whichever is the ruling party has resisted a JPC, sometimes
Yeah.
not months, sometimes weeks, depending on the amount of noise there is. I personally think here it is a question of the credibility of the regulator. There has to be an investigation, not just into her, but into gaps. If there are gaps, if there are systemic issues, if there are no SOPs on what they have to do when there are investments. In fact, I asked some people in SEBI yesterday, what exactly are the rules for you guys about what are you supposed to invest in, what can't you invest in, what do you disclose? Believe it or not, people who have been associated with the legal department also are fairly clueless. So
Hmm.
clearly, even that is an area that needs fixing. And if you ask me, for the last 10 years, the finance ministry has taken zero interest in what is happening in the capital market. They're so thrilled that the market has kept going up, up, and up. They have not wanted any hygiene. They think SEBI is doing all right. We've had a major co-location scam at the National Stock Exchange. They haven't bothered. We've had 32 broker defaults. People have lost humongous amounts of money. This is other than the co-location scam, okay? And the
Yeah.
government has taken zero interest. So now that it's their doorstep, wake up, because this is the brightest spot in your 10 years and you're into a third term. So don't keep on about, everyone is the enemy, everyone's anti-national because they're raising questions. I have raised questions. We have raised the maximum questions about 32 broker defaults. And believe me, these are not small people. They've lost thousands of crores only because
Hmm.
there was poor regulation. So if there is poor regulation, there's poor discipline, the finance ministry is responsible. They can't say that you're all enemies because you're raising questions.
But talking about the markets and how the markets are soaring, there are also questions asked every time. The time when Hindenburg made the allegations against the Adani Group, and now about Hindenburg's own intent as a short seller. Their obvious aim is also to short the market. They don't hide it, but they're also not coming to this. Their critics argue with an intent to be whistleblowers. They're coming to this with an intent to make money.
Exactly. And that's perfectly legitimate. So, Barkha, we are in a global market. We can't take pride saying that we are the third largest market in the world in terms of number of contracts traded, and then say we are so naive, we don't even understand the concept of short selling, which exists all over the world. And short sellers get an opportunity to make money. They're an integral part of the market. Unless somebody thinks that something is overvalued at some time, they can never short it. And they are recognized players in the market. They exist all over the world, and they are going to take opportunities to short because something is overvalued. A short seller can't make money unless something is overvalued, right? Because nobody is going to listen to them. They're going to laugh at them. And there are innumerable cases, believe it or not, where short sellers have lost heavily because they assumed that they can short sell and the price will go down, and it hasn't.
So one of the questions in our audience stream from Prasad is, Barkha, it's virtually impossible for anyone to declare all of their historical investments. What might be more prudent is to disclose all holdings made by the person in the last 2 years or so. If that kind of statutory limit applied, then she would not have had to declare this investment. Is there a timeline, or does it not matter? Even if she had invested in, let's say, this fund 30 years ago, if she's investigating that group, she has to declare it. Is that what you're saying?
So, Barkha, there'll be what if kind of hypothetical questions all the time. There is data here. She put in that letter for redemption in 2018 when she was whole-time member. Okay. Otherwise, there would be no questions asked. So this is just such a hypothetical question. We are not asking about investments she made or her father made for her at the age of 6. She was a whole-time member in 2018. So this is a ridiculous question.
So let me ask you this: do you believe she should resign, or do you find that a political demand?
Frankly, I think there has to be an investigation whether she should step down, whether she should resign, whether there should be a quick
But
close.
who leads the investigation into the market regulator chief?
The finance ministry has to either set up a committee. See, when again we go back to 92, there was a multidisciplinary committee that was set up, and people are going to wake up. All the little rules that were not followed, those will get punished. We get punished. You will get fined if you don't have your registration, you don't have your name written outside your registered office. These are all little things that come up. They may seem trivial, but if there are violations, there will be action. Okay,
Yeah.
so it needs to be investigated whether she needs to step down or not. I don't want to comment on it, but I think it is a serious issue. It questions the credibility of the regulator. You can't say I'm going to be in ISCO and I'll get taken seriously if this is how you conduct yourself. Other countries are also watching. They say, are you going to cover up or are you going to investigate? Are you going to go after someone who blew the whistle, or are you going to have even-handed treatment for people? So these are things that reflect on the nation. And I mean, I don't care about Hindenburg. I haven't followed them up. I know the kind of allegations people make. But when something has come in the public domain and it seriously questions the credibility, and this is not me saying it alone, okay? Ask any number of people who are in SEBI. They obviously don't want to go public about it, but look at the WhatsApps that are being exchanged from Saturday night. Everyone is shocked. Everybody
Yeah.
says that this is not on, it's not expected. Nobody that I know is saying, and I know a lot of them, nobody is saying, hey, this is like trivia. What are you guys making a noise about? They are surprised.
So that would be, in the end, my question to you. What about the rest of SEBI? As you said, SEBI isn't one person. We do not know at this point. SEBI was investigating not just Madhabi Puri Buch. SEBI was investigating the allegations against the Adani group. If she had made the internal disclosures, it means the rest of SEBI would have known about her prior investments in this offshore fund, right? There's also another thing we haven't spoken about. In her statement, she says that it was a husband's childhood friend on who's asking they invested in that fund. That childhood friend happened to have been a director in one of the Adani companies. So there's all of that to be said as well. Now, what about the rest of SEBI? They would have known, I'm assuming, they would have known about this investment if the
No, they
disclosures
were
had
not.
been made internally.
So, any kind of investments are not really put out on a notice board. Okay. And talking about this childhood friend part of it, I mean, somebody's Facebook contact was held for insider trading, an order passed by her. Okay. A Facebook friend with a like that was considered good enough. In fact, there are two cases, but this is her order. Right.
Right.
So, my point is, I'm only judging her by the standard she has set for others. I'm not holding her to a higher standard or a different standard. Her standards, quoting cases that she has, instituted. Now, the question that you asked is really very important. What are the checks and balances? When SEBI was set up, there were clear checks and balances, which is that you have to have a functioning parliament. You have to have this standing committee of parliament, which has adequate representation even from opposition parties, so that
Hmm.
people are questioned. Now, for the last 30 years, we have always said that when you have those hearings, they ought to be like the US Senate hearings, where it's publicly done, where people are questioned and we know what's being asked. In India, it's all closed. Okay, so we are now going to have we now have live streaming of the Supreme Court, but we don't have any of, most of the time these standing committee doesn't even meet. So first, SEBI reports to the finance ministry. Finance ministry is
Hmm.
sitting on SEBI board, RBI is sitting on the board. They don't ask questions. Then the standing committee is the next level. You don't even have a composition like it used to be in the past, where it's headed by an opposition leader who would have an interest in asking tough questions. Sometimes questions are asked in parliament, they're vaguely answered. So you have to put all the checks and balances in place if you don't want these kind of things blowing up in your face every once in a while.